Let us have a little fun and talk about Cyber Top Color Pencil. I know what you're thinking. You probably haven't seen these before. You probably never heard of these. I had not either. This was a nice surprise. It showed up at my doorstep, and I gotta say, at this stage in the game, I really enjoy these types of pencils. And by that, yes, I mean the cheap Chinese knockoffs, where I wouldn't go as far as say these are knockoffs, because I don't know what the other pencil would be, like what these would be skinned as. But, in the coloring groups, we all talk about the cheap Chinese pencils and them being crap. But every now and then you come across this diamond in the rough where I could tell you all day long about Prismacolor or Holbein or Polychromos. This is not going to surprise anyone. These pencils are well known for a reason. But when I turn around and talk about, like, for example, Finding the Lost Girl, that's a great example of a diamond in the rough. I felt good about sharing that set of pencils because they were a fun pencil. So this made me happy when it showed up. Right off the get-go, we see the tin has been printed on, so it's not like a Blick Studio where they just slapped a sticker on a generic gray tin. This makes it a little more personal, and the tin itself has a really nice lock on it. Let's look at the pencils themselves. These are in the manufacturing color order. I have not rearranged these, though if I do, it'll be numerical. This is a very pretty pencil. If we look at the red here, we can see right off the get-go, it's just the one side. So we have China, we have colored pencil, and we have 01. There is no color on here. Again, this is not going to bother me one little bit. I'm not going to look for a crimson red. I'm going to look for the number 1 pencil. And again, this will help me swatching. And in case you ever forget what you're using, you could just look right down and realize, hey, I'm using a colored pencil. So this, all in all, this is a pretty pencil. The barrel matches the lead. The back has not been dipped. And speaking of, whether the lead is or is not centered, these for the most part were not. I had more than a handful of pencils that the wood came almost to the tip where it had me sharpening it with an X-Acto blade. Again, maybe to be expected with a lower budget pencil. And here's something worth mentioning. About 4 or 5 of these pencils had mold on their lead. However, these pencils were being stored, mold started to form on the wooden part and on the lead part. But I just thought that was worth mentioning because I think that was probably the first that I've come across this. It was quite a few of them that was like that. And if you notice, a lot of these pencils are shorter than the others. This is a one-time use. I've used these one time. I did several swatches with them and swatch sheets, but the actual design, I used this one time, and they will definitely dissipate on you pretty quickly. Let's look at the colors here. So what we're looking at here, this is all 72 colors. This is their largest set of color pencils, is the 72. They do have some nice purples, and they have nice set of yellows, nice browns. The pinks are, to be desired. Just a couple of peaches. The blues are nice. The grays are okay. Again, with the 72 set, the good news is there was not a lot of repeated colors. In the greens, you had a couple, and in the blues, you had a couple that are similar. But for the most part, I got to give them credit. Their swatch sheet, their range of colors, it was pretty nice. Now let's talk about the pencils themselves. They were chalky. You saw how my pencils, some of them were a lot shorter than others. They did not maintain a tip at all. That they go pretty fast. They have a residue to them. And it's funny because as I was coloring, it was like the 4th of July. Like, my pencil felt like it was spitting out pigments everywhere. So I'd have to delicately try to blow them off the page or erase them away because they almost like infused themselves on the paper like Velcro. They would wait dormant until another color hit it, and then it would smear red all over my yellow or whatever the case was. So I had to be very cautious while coloring with these little pigments that were going places. Another thing about them, when you're playing around with a color pencil and you go over itself, or you get another color, like if you're coloring with a light green and you go over it with dark green, the second time around, the second layer, it's real smooth and creamy because now you're going over a wax or an oil that's already been laid down. That is not an issue with these pencils. They never felt like they were getting smooth. It constantly felt like I was drawing on sandpaper. I don't know that I've ever been able to say that. And it was because of this, it was also kind of hard to create a smooth look. And I'm sure you're familiar with watercolor pencils. They have a certain grit to them, and you just kind of handle them a different way. These had that feel, like even when I was being really light, it was putting strokes on the paper, so it was very hard to get that smooth look as well. And this was a bit new to me. These pencils had a learning curve. The good news on it, though, is they did seem to blend a little better, and they were easier to blend or add darker layers once you blended them. That was a nice touch, and you definitely will want to use a softer blender, possibly a Caran, maybe a Grisaille, but they did add, color did accept well on blended areas, and that was a nice plus. But all in all, these pencils definitely came with a learning curve, which would be fine if they were an expensive pencil, but I found myself kind of struggling and pushing my way through these. The upside is, even though they were gritty, and even though they were messy and they never got smooth, the colors, I guess that was the trade-off. The colors were very vibrant with these pencils, enough so that kind of made it worth me playing around with them and possibly using them again. So when it comes down to it, I would say I could recommend these pencils simply for the price. You're not going to get much of a cheaper pencil, so you're going to get what you pay for, but just kind of expect what you're going into it. You're about to get a gritty pencil that's not going to maintain a point. It's gonna be messy, but if you just want to expand, I'm not going to shoot these down and say avoid them, but at the same time, know what you're gonna get when you go into Cyper Top. So I hope this helped, and I'll talk to y'all later.
Sugar Solito.